to perform a community assessment where they find houses at various states of completion. They all inspect different houses, and FTQ will assemble their findings into a final report. So the inspectors split up. Each of them starts with a fresh inspection on every home that they're looking at. They tell us a little bit about the home itself, maybe take a few pictures. Then they get down to the technical assessment. Of course, you don't know exactly what you're going to inspect when you get there. So there are different systems that are prepared so that there's a structured approach to look at each different system. So you choose the what's applicable to the home you're looking at. You click on the button, and it automatically inserts a structured approach for looking at that particular system. So you continue going down your checklist, adding issues, and taking pictures of the problems that you found, describing them, so that later on when you give a final report, you have some very specific things that you can share in your findings. And you just continue this process for every home, every system in every home that you're looking at. You can also add exemplary observations, which is a nice practice to give some credit where credit is due when some people are doing good work. Here's what you get as far as like the report on the inspection itself of the particular home. So now when you get towards the end of the process, you choose the community assessment summary. This brings everything together in like an executive overview. You add some information to like what you inspected, what you looked at, some overall assessments of what's happening. If you have a scoring mechanism, you would insert those scores there. These can be quite verbose, so no problem there. And this provides a structured approach for giving an executive overview. So this becomes the cover page. It'll have information on here like the participants, so that someone who was not there would have a pretty good idea of what's actually going on during the assessment. So what will come out of here are some actions that should be taken immediately as far as corrective actions. So you can just itemize those. You can add findings, corrective actions, preventive actions. It just depends. All these are options that can be or don't need to be on how you structure the assessment. But whatever the structure is that you use, FTQ360 will support a consistent approach for all the participants and all the assessments that are being done. In the end, you just run a series of favorite reports, is pretty much what it looks like. You have your executive overview, all the attachments that you need, all the sign-offs, a deficiency list of issues that were found, even if they were corrected, and then individual house reports. Here's how to set everything up in FTQ360. There's really only two checklists that are needed: the community field assessment and the summary. So let's take a look at the assessment first. What we did is set up some instructions at the very beginning, considering that people might not be very experienced in FTQ360 and need to learn how to do things in just a few minutes. And then in the body of the inspection, we have a general section, which is what you would want to know about each home that's being inspected. If you want to have a specific community and lot recorded, you would normally put it just in this location reference here. And this would be the information about the specific home. In the lower section is where we have the technical assessment. And the way that these are set up is every system is a different header, and then under each header would be one dynamic checkpoint, which would have the specific items that are checked for that particular system. Now, it's much better in cases like this to have shorter lists than longer lists, so that people don't consider a burden going through the checklist that you have here, but it does add some structure to the kinds of things that they might look at. It's useful to put a general section at the bottom where they can add an issue and associate it with the different types of systems. You can use this in two ways. One is to add issues to the systems that are above, but it's another way to add a particular issue related to a system that might not be listed above, but you're still able to track it to a building system. This Exemplary Observations is an area which is a good one where you can catch people doing things good, which is always a positive thing to bring up during an assessment and recognize good work. You can also add miscellaneous deficiencies as you find them for whatever system that you might have. And that's pretty much how this one is set up. So let's take a look at the second checklist, which is the Community Assessment Summary. So this only gets used one time. So there are some basic information. Different people tend to use different approaches, but generally it's like, what did we look at? Give me some overall assessments of what's going on, an executive overview. Higher up the food chain, people will only look at these things. And some key findings. And it's also good to bring out exemplary practices right here as well. Some administrative things like identifying the participants, just adding a general finding that you might have. But then there's a really kind of like insights into synthesizing all of what you've seen and is to what should be done now to address what you're seeing. So you can add specific actions. This is so that you can set them up as separate actions that need to be taken, that can be assigned as open items to different responsible parties and given due dates. This is if you're going to actually follow up on what's actually going on out there. Preventive actions are longer term to prevent further things. This might be like lessons learned kind of approach to saying, okay, you might have different areas of preventive action like training, process improvement, or whatever. So let's say most of these things revolve around simple things like training and heightened awareness. And so you might say, okay, these are training topics that we should deploy here so that people are more successful at getting it right the first time. And then if you like, you can sign off, have a signature button at the end here. So that's basically how the inspection checklist templates are set up. There's only two of them. As far as setting up a project goes, you only need to set up one project for the full scope of the assessment, because all the details at the lower levels are being recorded on the field assessment checklist, because all of the details are being recorded on the field assessment inspections. There are only two reports that need to be run to get your final package together. One of them is the 401AX report, and then you would just choose the project that you had as the scope of your overall assessment. And if you need to just constrain the dates a little bit, you can just make it for like the last 7 days, which would cover the full scope of your assessment, and run that report. And you're pretty much done with getting the data out of FTQ360 as far as the reports go. There's one other report that's helpful, and that is the 406AX report. It'll pull out all the deficiencies that were found on all of the reports and put them into one report. And again, just filter it by the project that you're on, the dates. It'll include only the items that are in the assessment that you just performed. The final step is to assemble your final package using a PDF tool like Adobe Acrobat or something. You just take your different files, you put them into one file, and you might rearrange pages as you see fit for your final report.